Hello, good morning. So I'm Arun Castro. I am the RoadieMedic, self-styled RoadieMedic. So I'm not a rock doc, but I work for BAPAM, which is a charity. I look after musicians, artists, dancers, and all sorts of people involved in creative arts. So I'm here today to talk about my favorite topic, which is about festivals and touring and health. So touring really presents our bodies with a unique set of stress tests, and it's a perfect storm of stimulus and stimulants sometimes. And that's all well and good, and sometimes it can make our careers, and sometimes it can take us to difficult, dark places. So who do I see, and why do people see a tour doctor? So there's kind of like three sort of themes to the stuff that I would look after. So travel-related stuff that a generic traveller might endure or experience. So infections, getting a virus, problems with posture. So if you sat on the overnight train like me in economy, 8 hours in the same seat, you might have some sciatica going on. If you're traveling around the world, there's jet lag and fatigue to go with that. If you're going really long haul, things like travel-related DVT. Then there's some touring-specific things, so noise exposure, light exposure, kind of outside of your normal circadian rhythms. And then there's all this cognitive burden. You're always on, your phone's always going off, you've always got WhatsApp messages, you've got things to post online, and there's a lot of cognitive burden. Add to that a bit of dehydration, not having time to look after yourself and get food and drink. And those are all kind of like touring specific. So you're in this vehicle of touring that just goes where it goes and you're a passenger in it. And then there's role-specific things. So I kind of help people with vocal health issues, some vocal strains, some things might be infection-related, something might be technique-related, and then there's other things to do with hearing health. So a weird one I had at a festival recently. Someone had some free in-ear molds fitted, and they kind of didn't put in, you're supposed to put in a little tampon thing before you put in the sort of silicone gel. And basically the silicone set towards their eardrum, and when they pulled it out, it just started bleeding like hell. And if you can imagine, your hearing's your livelihood, and what do you do in that situation? So I kind of got involved and helped them, and luckily everything went fine afterwards. So we did some audiogram baseline testing. We have a camera, so you have a look inside the ear and see what's going on. And in the end, the in-ears came out, and they had a temporary plug put in, and they could carry on doing their show and then their tour. But I guess, the worst case scenario is a perforated tympanic membrane. Then how are you going to fly? How are you going to hear what your band are doing? And all that kind of stuff that goes with it. So with that, there's a lot of mental health stuff, a crossover with some of the physical health stuff that sets you back, then starts to impact your mental health. So, for guitarists, repetitive strain injuries, or for, upper limb sort of stuff. For dancers, it's usually lower limb. And then, if you're part of production, lifting and shifting, working late, working at height, manual handling kind of injuries and that kind of stuff, and accidents. But yeah, I'm a rock star, so why should I care? Why should I care about all this? Well, I think we should care about it. Well, the answer's there. It's, yeah, I am a rock star, but I'm serious about my music. And, if you're serious about what you're doing, and you see that as your personal expression, your career, the way you want to exist and, feed yourself and clothe yourself, then you've got to take these things seriously. And I think I saw the Rolling Stones at a stadium gig once, and I was like, how are they still doing it, in spite or despite of whatever's happened before? But I think we have so many emerging artists that come through, and I just think, why can we not have more evergreen careers or sustainability to it? And so that's kind of, with my medical hat on, just got me thinking we should be borrowing from the world of sports medicine and think of the performer, from all aspects. So from the biology, their psychology, and the social structures around them. So why do things go wrong? Well, so when you're on tour at a festival, you're separated from your protective factors. So that might be the people and places that keep you grounded, the routines that make you feel comfortable. And then you're in sort of unfamiliar environments and unfamiliar people. You just meet people for the first time, you have to get on with them. It's quite hard. It takes a lot of executive functioning to, negotiate all that stuff. And so, you're dumped into this venue for the first time, and it's psychologically slightly unsafe. Add to that sleep deprivation, so your bandwidth for handling all these sort of things, interactions, gets harder and harder. Add to that a bit of travel, and things start to go wrong sometimes. So more reasons why things go wrong. So the mental load, we talked about that. And I think for emerging artists, and at all kind of levels, independent artists, even at sort of theatre arena levels, to starting out in club venues and stuff like that, the pressure to promote and to perform, and I should probably get rid of profit at this point, but break even from touring, and then discussing with family members that you're having to take time away from, that this is, this isn't just a hobby, that this is, your work. It's not just a jolly. So all of that, that mental load whilst you're out there in these unfamiliar environments becomes quite a stressful concoction. And then also, if you're part of a tour, there's a lack of autonomy. You've got to show up at this time, and you've got to go this place at that time. You might have to do a meet and greet, you might have to do PR, you might not want to answer the same questions about the album, or why you chose the cover of whatever to be the way it was. And then you're with your bandmates, your crewmates all the time, and there's that lack of personal space. And then you get relationship strains, so whether it's within the band, within the tour management, who might be your friends previously, so these kind of blurred relationships between friends and then colleagues, and then the financial kind of aspects of it, all adds to the melting pot for why things might go wrong. And also, if you look at sort of festivals and touring, the easiest choices aren't always the healthiest. So this is my favorite pie chart. It's not really a pie chart. Favorite circle. So it's poached from nature, but basically it shows you a clock, basically, the circadian rhythm clock. So if we start at 6 in the morning, that's when cortisol is getting secreted from your adrenal glands. That's when you're waking up, and then you're alert by 10 o'clock. So yeah, we're all alert. And then as the day goes on, stuff happens. In the natural world, you wouldn't have much light around 8 o'clock. And with that, the pineal gland in the brain starts to produce melatonin. That's your rest and recover hormone. Perfect. And then overnight, you start to produce white cells, lymphocytes, that basically protect you from illnesses. Now, if you want to stick in the touring rhythm to that, it's completely at odds. It does not give a hoot about what you've biologically been adapted for millennia. So if we kind of look at, you're doing the build, okay, 2 till 4, whatever it is. You might be doing media, fine. And then you've got this weird dead space, the 4 till 7, 4 till 8, where you're trying to fill your time with things to do. And that's kind of sometimes where people kind of have difficulties with substances, when there's just nothing to do, or just the anxiety of performing coming up. So we'll come to the solutions maybe at the end, but it's not all doom and gloom. But so that's a stressful, difficult thing. And then we get into the show, which is great. Lots of lights and lots of adulation of your fans, or it goes really badly and you feel terrible, or there was no reaction. And then there's the after party or the loadout. There's an after party twice on this. Interesting. I don't know this band. After party, loadout, and then loadout, after party. I haven't worked with them. And then you go and travel in a bunk on a bus, or in whatever means, van, plane, yeah. And this is when, your peak lymphocyte counts should be happening, and your deepest sleep should be happening, but actually you're hyperstimulated, you're buzzing, you've got loads of adrenaline and things going around your body, and you're depriving yourself of that melatonin, that rest and recover. So no wonder at the end of tour, we tend to get viral illnesses. So I think, coming to this later on, this is why the touring rhythms are out of sync with our circadian rhythms. But I think, we can't really change the game in terms of how touring works on a day, but we could change it on a longer kind of trajectory. So the tour's trajectory, things like having off days, who would have thought, which is difficult with fuel costs. But I think sometimes that's the kind of balance you need to kind of weigh up to looking at how we can have an evergreen career that includes touring and festivals. So just kind of casting back to the year before last, reasons why people cancel shows. So on the right hand, left hand, one of the sides, the pink side, we got Justin Bieber cancelled his tour with something called Ramsay-Hunt syndrome, which is like a viral infection, affects your facial nerve, it causes facial paralysis, and then you can't sing, you can't perform, and then you're out for probably 6 to 8 weeks, so viral illness, basically. Rage Against the Machine, I've forgotten the front man's name, yeah, so he tore his Achilles tendon, and they cancelled their tour. And actually, it was kind of billed as Achilles tendon, but the question is, was it mental health and as well? Apparently, Bruce Springsteen's cancelled tours because of a peptic ulcer issue. Coldplay last year in Brazil, they cancelled 6 weeks of touring because Chris Martin had pneumonia. And then sort of other injuries and problems, mainly in the hair metal genre. Wasp, their lead singer, he had a vertebral fracture with disc herniation. Imagine that on tour. Pain. Yeah, so they had to, I think, take the whole tour a year back. And then Ozzy Osbourne with Parkinson's disease, unable to perform to the level that he wanted. On the other side of it, the world's talking about mental health cancellations. And what is this? Because maybe in the 80s it would be burnout or exhaustion. Now we're calling it mental health. What is that? There's such a granularity to it. And I think what's interesting is in terms of the sort of musician's insurance and contingency insurance that you might have for a tour, is kind of getting a good granularity of what your pre-morbid, what your normal state health is, and mental health. Because at the moment they probably ask you, have you ever been sectioned? Do you take any antidepressants? Do you take antipsychotics? And that's about the level of the granularity. So on the, what that means is some people with really significant issues will withhold that information, and then the risk is to everyone else in the tour, and they don't get help, and the risk is to them personally. The flip side is they tell them everything and then they can't get the insurance. So we need to be a bit more nuanced. And I think this mental health thing, all these names here have had to cancel for mental health. I think this is going to be a real thing going forwards to how we really support artists to have their evergreen careers earlier on with prevention, proactive approach to things rather than breakdown cover. So I've got probably about 2 minutes left, is that right? So maybe I'll leave you with this concept. So we've got the idea of homeostasis from school. So you've got an organism will kind of balance itself out to survive, to get to this balance. But what we know about acute stress, when added together, it creates cumulative stress. It causes our body to sort of change the normal parameters. And so that's a concept of allostasis. So over time, we adapt, we retune to new norms. So that might be our weight, it might be our blood pressure, we might not be changing our diet particularly, you're eating the same rubbish, but over time with the stress plus the rubbish, our blood pressure goes up or our weight goes up. So, thinking about your careers in music, it's acute and chronic stress. And I think, well, what can we do? What can you do? Coming up to sum up now. So I suppose is to just understand that touring, festivals, small venues, large venues, are stressful, and that we just need to have reasonable expectations of each other. We need to foster more empathy and think about accessing specialist help early. So I'm here with BAPAM today, and we're doing a pop-up clinic for artists, musicians. It's free to access, and it starts in about 5 minutes. So yeah, you can find us at the front if you'd like to sign up. Apart from that, what else can you do? Think about your tour scheduling, meal prep, prehab before rehab. Think about vocal coaching, straw phonation exercises. If you don't know what that is, come and find us. Think about your entry and exit planning. So this is when you have arguments with your other half. You know, well, I'm going on tour. No, you're not. Yeah, all that kind of stuff. So sources for help musicians have a really brilliant hearing health scheme. If you want to get some in-ear molds, if you want audiograms, go to them. BAPAM for all kinds of things. Tonic Rider for sort of addiction support. Back Lounge and Roadies in Recovery, specific for production health. And then my own plug for my RoadieMedic little startup. Thank you for listening. I think we're out of time, so if anyone wants to take questions,